Hey guys, Toby Morrison here. Welcome to today's topic, which is tired but wired. This is a very common thing with chronic illness and chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. Even though one of the word says it all, chronic fatigue syndrome sounds like you would sleep all day. That's usually the opposite in some senses, where you are so tired but so wired that you actually can't switch off and can't rest and relax and ultimately calm your body down and your mind down so you can be at peace. So this is a really important topic, and I've written down a few things here, and normally I don't write a list, but I think it's important just to cover each topic because what happens with this illness is we need a bit of understanding and knowledge to go, okay, this is why it's happening, how can I change it? I want to give you some practical tips that you can implement in your life that will help you calm yourself down, calm that nervous system down, and ultimately get to a sense of good tired, not necessarily wired. I also have done a video which you might benefit from, which I spoke about the difference between chronic fatigue syndrome tired and normal tired. I'll put the link in the comment section, so make sure you watch that. That gives you a clear indication of the difference, because obviously there is such thing as normal tired, which is a good tired, which we all want to achieve and can achieve. That's the body's natural state. However, we want to avoid that complete exhaustion state that can be led from chronic fatigue syndrome. So, without further ado, tired but wired. So the first thing I've got here is underslept. And one of the things that happens with chronic fatigue syndrome is that we get into a really bad sleep cycle, which means that we might have interrupted sleep during the evening, but then we might rest a lot during the day, or even sleep sometimes during the day, which can then affect our sleep cycle. And what happens is the body then doesn't know what time of day it is. It gets confused as to when it should go to bed and when it shouldn't. And then the cycle gets out of whack, so there's no continuity and there's no rhythm and routine, which is what the body needs in order to, have structure and routine within itself, to know what time of day it is, when to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, when to digest, when to rest, when to get up and go, just like a healthy person would. So it gets confused when it's in that state of chaos. So what we want to do is actually reverse that and get into a good sleep cycle. And of course, it's not going to happen overnight, but you can reverse it quite quickly by getting into a really good structure and routine, not over resting, but not under resting too. And same thing with sleeping. You can oversleep and feel worse for it too. So it's about listening to your body, but also watching your mind, and not being in an overprotective state to accommodate for yourself, because that can be detrimental in the long run. So I've written underslept here. Another thing that can cause being tired and wired is excessive thoughts, or no peace of mind. And it's almost like rushing woman syndrome, where we're go, 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 or rushing man syndrome, where it's like, you have like 100 things that you need to do, but you can't do anyway, and then you stress yourself out, and it's like a mental masturbation in your head. And it gets confusing and overwhelming, and then you feel completely in chaos, where you can't, you might be in a really peaceful room, but in your mind and your body, you're in complete chaos, and therefore, it feels overwhelming. So what we want to do with that is actually try and slow down. And the best thing to do is do something that you enjoy. That can really get you back in the present moment, and it might be just listening to really good music, or meditating, or if you're able, you can go outside and sit in the sun, or talk to your friend for 10 minutes, whatever it is. But switching your focus from what I should be doing but I can't do, to what am I doing for myself now, can help you get back into that state of calmness and centeredness, which is ultimately what we want to achieve. But we have to get the basics right first, which is obviously the sleep, nutrition, and restorative movement. One thing I've written down here is actually too much physical exertion can cause that tired and wired feeling. Most people wouldn't say that, but it becomes an addiction, because what happens is when we over-exercise, we get a huge release of dopamine, cortisol, stress response, which is that euphoric kind of feeling, but it wears off, obviously. And what happens is when it wears off, the addiction says, I need more of that. I need the dopamine again. So you push yourself again and you push yourself and you almost run on adrenaline, right? And then you have to wait for the crash to come to actually floor you and calm you down so you rebuild back. Use the crash, if you do have a crash, use that crash to get a really solid foundation and baseline that you can actually work from, that's actually from a place of centeredness and calmness. You don't want to push yourself all the time and feel like you're pushing through all the time, because again, you're probably living off adrenaline and stimuli, right? Which is going to keep you probably really, it'll make you eventually tired, but really, really wide. And that's why it's important to have a perspective, a broader perspective on what's actually going on and why am I doing this? Why am I doing it this way? How can I do it differently? Again, it's usually not what we do, it's how we do it. And we need to do it from a place of centeredness and calmness. Not all the time, obviously, because that's very unrealistic. You're not going to turn into a Buddhist monk who walks around and is Zen-like all the time. That's an unrealistic expectation on yourself, right? Because ultimately, with life, there's going to be stresses and there's going to be things that tick you off. And there's no perfect, but what we can do is, okay, listen to our body, listen to our mind and go, what do we need to do right now to help ourselves? And again, like when you're healthy and you're well and you're dealing with stress perceptions really good, you deal with life a lot better. And so it doesn't become a problem for you. I've got down here, thinking that there's too much to do. So again, excessive expectations on yourself, or that perfectionistic kind of trait, can also be detrimental to your health and make you more tired but wired, because you're constantly thinking you can't switch off. The typical one is when you're lying down in bed at night and you close your eyes but you just think of a million things at the same time, and you feel like you can't sleep. And it could even be thinking about not being able to sleep. So your thoughts about not being able to sleep is actually what's keeping you awake. So again, it's important just to slow that down, and eventually you'll get into a good tide, which is what we want to achieve by the end of the day, where you've had the right amount of rest and work ratio, you've eaten at the right times, you've calmed your nervous system down by the end of the day, you're not as stimulated as you were during the morning, and you calm down. Now, in the morning, that's when our system is revved up the most, so 6 a.m. or even a bit earlier, 5 a.m., 7 p.m. onwards. And what happens is by middle of the day, our energy lowers. That's when we should rest and digest. And then we go back into kind of like 3 to 4 p.m. till around 7 p.m. is when our energy kicks up again. And then, you want it to lower down. But what happens with people with chronic fatigue syndrome is they're usually most awake at night, which is a big problem, because then you can't sleep and calm down. So we want to reverse that. We want to almost have like a bit more excessive energy in the morning, where it's a little bit more tight and wide then, but then we want to be calmed down by the end of the day. I've written down here too much stimulation, mental stimulation and physical. Mental stimulation, too much screenplay, too much listening to way too much noise, and it's everywhere. I mean, this is a problem for everyone, whether you have got chronic fatigue syndrome or not. If you're constantly looking at TV screens, iPhones, iPads, laptops, computers, even like, we've got our iPhone with us all the time, right? And one habit you can form is, being away from your phone for an hour a day or 2 hours or 3 hours, and using that as a place to get connected to yourself again. So you're not always reliant on a stimulation to, keep your life occupied. And that is a huge problem that I see in the world, within myself and everyone else. So that's something we could all work on. So we've got TV screens, iPhones, and even lights. So especially at night time, we want to dim the lights. Get rid of the screenplay after 7 p.m, 8 p.m. And, remember, back in the day when no technology was there, what do you think people did when it got dark? They calmed down, They slowed down, their system started to switch off, it started to increase melatonin instead of serotonin. Remember, when you're awake, when you see light, that's when the serotonin rises, which is good and appropriate for that time. And then when at night time, that's why people take melatonin tablets for sleep, because they can't produce it themselves, or they need to produce more of it. So again, you can do that naturally by being in the daylight during the day, and then being away from light and stimulate at the night time, so you can calm down and relax your mind and body. Now, also is the physical side of things. There can be physical stimulation, so internally, externally, so things like coffee, alcohol, drugs, recreational or prescribed drugs, depending on what the person's taking. All this can be inappropriate if it's making you wired and tired all the time. Coffee is a bad one. It's not that coffee's bad, it's just whether it's appropriate or not for the person. If you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, it's not wise to take stimulants at all, because it's just, again, it's revving your system up, your nervous system up, which is what you don't want to do. You actually want to calm your nervous system down. I've written down here the SNS, which is the sympathetic nervous system. And this is really what it comes down to. It's the stress response. It means that you're constantly on alert all the time. And again, we use both. We use the PNS and the SNS. So sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state. So whenever we're living, we're using a combination of two, but obviously at night time we want to be in the rest and digest state, which is the PNS nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, which is calm down, the yin states, the slow, the relaxed, the chill. During the day, we want to be more in the awake state. So it won't be so much in the parasympathetic nervous system state, because you won't be resting and digesting when you're doing stuff. Okay, of course you can train yourself to calm down when you're doing things like movement and meditation and exercise, and even doing chores around the house. You can calm yourself down and do it in a way that's actually nurturing for you versus stressful for you. And it comes down to awareness and mindfulness of what you're doing, and how you're doing it ultimately is the key. So if you are tired but wired, one, know it's normal, okay? Sometimes trying to change it is actually, because you're going about it in a desperated state, like I need to fix this, and you're pushing yourself to get rid of the tired but wired feeling, but it's only making you worse. That's because you're probably trying too hard. So if you just stop trying so hard, that actually might help you just literally just do what you need to do, which is just be in a restful, peaceful state. What have I got here to finish with? That's it. If you feel like you need to rehearse this, I'd start back from the start of this video and watch it again, because you can make some notes on this and make it relative for you right now. What do you feel you need to work on? Are you trying too hard? Are you looking at too much information? Are you absorbing yourself too much in trying to do all these things? The question that you can always ask yourself is, what do I need to do right now to help myself? What does my best self need? And that will usually put you in a better state. You can use things like, alternative stuff like hot bars with sea salts in it, Epsom sea salts, or magnesium oil is good to rub into your body, and all those kinds of things. But again, you don't want to rely on that. You more want to rely on yourself to calm yourself down and get into a better, more relaxed state. And again, like I said, you're human. It's okay if you're tired but wired all the time. It's just you can change it, whether it's becoming too inappropriate for you, and do what is right for yourself and your body and mind. And just finally, on an important topic with exercise, I suggest you watch the video on chronic fatigue syndrome and exercise, because exercise is really important. And I don't really like the word exercise. I call it movement, because it's more of a way that is not condescending with the gym. What we want to do is do what's right for our body right now, because that can produce really good tiredness by the end of the day if we do it in the right way. And sometimes for some people it will be very minimal in terms of, it could be 30 seconds per day or even less, or it might be a bit more. And over time, once you get the right designed program for you that you stick to, that's right for yourself, you'll know what's right and wrong for your body when you need to do it. Rather than being told by someone who doesn't understand your actual body, it's important to get advice from people who do. And ultimately, you're the person who's going to be in control of that. So you want to choose what's right for you. And I suggest starting with 50% less than what you think you should do, and working towards a calmer, more centered, balanced state that you can work towards from a grounded position. I hope that helps. For more information, go to www.cfshealth.com. This is a quick video from me in the program that I teach, which has got 25 hours worth of video content. I teach you all this stuff that helps people ultimately, the pathway to creating a healthier lifestyle, a better quality of life, and ultimately a better quality being, which is you, the best version of yourself. So all the best for now, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.